Media.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. What can we say about Pierre Poilevre, minus that he's really doing a good job when it comes to the campaigning, early campaigning for next year's 2025 election? He's basically running the numbers in his favor. We all know that the chances of a majority from Pierre Poilevre, especially if you look at today's polling statistics, are very likely, or at least looking very positive. Now, he has been kicking rears and taking names, so to speak, in the House of Commons, and we've seen no shortage of Pierre doing what he does best during question period, standing up, putting Justin Trudeau in his place. When you look at the ridiculous amount of spending that has come forth in this country's current 2024 budget, you'll see that, again, Pierre has common sense pushing back against Justin Trudeau's ridiculous spending. We've already seen the insane level of spending that's going into housing or housing accelerator funds that do essentially nothing. We've seen Crystia Freeland preaching that 24 units are going to be built in 24 months in Newfoundland, aside from other projects that essentially is a house a month, going up at a time when they need roughly 4 million houses in order to meet the demand of the high level of immigrants that they're allowing to pour into the country on a daily basis. But now we see with Justin Trudeau and his recent announcement about the billions of dollars going to electric vehicle companies that he is purely out of touch. He refuses to even acknowledge the carbon tax or the economy that he's put into a state with people. And I know you're probably screaming at the television screen right now saying, Fringe, we already know this stuff. We know Trudeau's corrupt. We know that he's pushing back. Well, I did question the other day the motives of Pierre Poilevre in terms of his promises. Now, I don't feel that Pierre Poilevre is going to do a 180 on people, that Pierre is going to mess people around. My concern solely sits around the idea that when I hear the comments from a majority of my viewers, a lot of it sounds to me like viewers are putting too much faith or rose-colored glasses into the promises, expecting them to be done quicker rather than over time. What I mean by that is similar to the conversation I had with Melissa Lantsman that I always refer in my live streams, that Melissa Lantsman had sat me down and said, you have to realize that when Pierre gets into an office, there is a big mess to clean up. It is going to take time, even with a majority government. It takes time to pass these bills. It takes time to put these things into practice and find the money in order to pay for these things and do the things that are promised. That's reality. My concern, when I hear the desperation from people, when I hear people saying, I'm worried about re-signing my mortgage, I'm worried about the cost of groceries, I'm worried about the ever-growing cost of fuel, costs to send my kids to school with a lunch, the ability to pay if an emergency happens at home or something breaks down. The list goes on and on. My concern is that Pierre is essentially coming out to do a fantastic job for Canadians. Again, he's got my vote. I think he's going to deliver. But what I'm worried about is time. I'm worried about essentially the promises and people not giving him the time that it's going to take, expecting immediate results out of desperation. Now, I think anybody's valid for having those fears. I think anybody who doesn't think those things are going to happen, great. I sit in that boat as well. I just worry about mixed messaging. And again, was asking a question of the community. And not that I'm apologizing for that, because again, I stand firm on my questioning and what I believe that I hear from people when I see comments that say things like, I'm putting my faith in Pierre Poilevre to fix the economy, fix Canada. Hopefully he can fix a lot of things when it comes time to him being prime minister. And I agree with a lot of the comments left on that video that Justin Trudeau just being gone is a good thing. And I couldn't agree more. But what we're seeing from Pierre and something that he has done this week shows just why he's getting my vote, why I think he's deserving of everybody's vote. But I want to get into exactly where the pushback is coming from and why this man deserves everyone's vote in the next election.
This is the ninth deficit. The ninth deficit after the Prime Minister promised the budget would balance itself. And what did he do with the money? Everything he spent on has become more expensive. He's doubled the rent, doubled mortgage payments, doubled the needed down payment for a home, forced 35 homeless encampments in Halifax alone. 1 in 4 kids cannot afford food. And now he's adding $40 billion of new debt and new spending. That's $2,400 of new inflation. That is why Conservatives will vote against this wasteful, inflationary budget that is like a pyromaniac spraying gas on the inflationary fire that he lit. It is getting too hot and too expensive for Canadians, and that's why we need a carbon tax election to replace him with a common-sense conservative government.
Again, a lot of what I said coming into this video, that he's not worth the cost, he's too expensive, people can't afford anything. The problem with Justin Trudeau's 8 years in government, and again, his connections to the World Economic Forum, you see this outrage over the Liberals saying that Alex Jones has given his nod towards Pierre Poilevre, simply saying that he likes Pierre, while the Liberals are given their endorsements from who? Klaus Schwab? Which would you take over on a recommendation of a representative? I, for one, would not side with anybody who sits with Klaus Schwab. But of course, Pierre Poilievre talking about what Justin Trudeau has brought into things and why he does this. And we all know the answers, but again, it's important to look at this because it shows the other side of Pierre Poilievre as we get into what he's done recently that I'm very happy to see.
He wants to have total control over what you can see and say online, to protect us all from these dangerous forces that might influence our thinking if we're not protected by the angels in the government. And yet, when there is actually a risk of manipulation by hostile and malicious actors like, say, a communist regime in Beijing, he can't even take the responsibility of reading his briefing notes.
First of all, these are briefing notes that I never saw. These are briefings for a briefer who then gave a briefing.
This is the irony, the great irony of his leadership, and one of the reasons why I think he's succeeded in doubling housing costs, giving us the worst inflation in 40 years, sending 2 million people to the food banks, 8,000 people signing up for a Facebook group called the Dumpster Diving Network because they now have to eat out of a garbage can after he drove food prices rising with his carbon tax. He wants to control every aspect of your life, and then when he ruins your life, he wants to take none of the responsibility for the ruin that he caused.
Again, we've talked about all of this many times on the channel, but it paints a picture. When we talk about control, that's all Justin's wanted from day one. You look at the pandemic, you look at everything that came afterwards, freezing bank accounts, locking you in your homes, telling you what you can and can't do, making life too unaffordable that you have no choice but to follow his methods of control. And when you think about censorship, boy, even look at no further than this channel. If you go back and look at people coming into the channel and suppression that's hit YouTube to most political channels. It's not just mine. I'm not playing the victim card here, but you'll notice there's been a lot of suppression on YouTube lately when it comes to political channels that talk against the Prime Minister of Canada. YouTube has its yes and no boxes of what you can and can't say. And I know people say, go to Rumble, go to other platforms. It's not that simple. You can't just walk away from a channel with thousands of subscribers and say, let's start all over again to get the message out. If you want the message out, you got to keep going where the people are. And unfortunately, this seems to be the platform for that. But one thing that Pierre talks about is how people are dumpster diving to save on costs, how Justin Trudeau causes the ruin and then takes no responsibility for it. People are at the breaking point, and we've seen that in the last month since the April 1st raising of the carbon taxes by 23%. Of course, those protests are still going on. But the thing that I like most about Pierre Poilievre and that I'm happy to see is the other day, Pierre attended and took photos with and talked with those who are protesting, again, standing up for Canadians, making sure that Canadians are heard. Let's just take a look at this clip. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Where do you guys get a shower?
Down here.
You guys get a shower?
Yeah, a big shower.
Yeah. This is where I sleep.
I think you're getting a tan, bro. You think you're getting a tan?
You are getting a tan.
Oh, man.
So you guys are here 24/7?
We've had a couple of good days, but
And so when I ask the tax, then you guys are going to be able to go home.
right on.
Yes.
I've seen
So again, the audio is a little muffled here because it's outside. There's no dedicated microphone recording Pierre, but he asked, are you guys here 24/7? They said yes. And then he said, so when I ask the tax, you guys will be able to go home.
Can I get a picture with you up beside that?
We wouldn't stand in front of something else.
Okay.
Again, the joke comes up here. They asked him to stand in front of the F Trudeau flag, and he kindly denied. Again, he makes a statement here and says, you wouldn't believe what I have to deal with in the House of Commons. But it's funny that he'll take photos with people. He loves meeting people. And again, anytime you've been to a Pierre Poilievre rally, he will wait and meet with everybody in a receiving line who comes to those events, who wants to talk with him, who wants a photo opportunity. This is the signs of a genuine leader that cares about his constituents.
You don't want to get them going. How about from the front of it?
Have you seen
How about
you see what I do in the House of Commons every day?
We see him kind of answering questions, what we see.
Who is this? Hold on.
Together?
Good to see you guys.
Yeah,
Thanks for all you're doing.
Actually speaks words to just stopping him randomly.
Yeah.
You never thought you would see anything like this.
Yeah. Like I said, there's an outbreak of common sense across Canada.
What's that word again?
Common sense. We're dusting off that word.
Yeah.
It would
Oh,
collect
geez,
a
that's
lot
been
of
gone
dust.
for a long time.
And,
God bless you, man.
we're going to axe the tax. It's
Yeah.
going to happen. And it's going to be in part because you guys stood up and fought back.
Yeah.
People have had enough. They've been told to sit down and shut up and pay up for too long.
Yeah.
And that's going to end.
Well, we can do another 23 days, so.
Absolutely. We need a
Well, if we have to stay here till November, I'm staying. My boots are blank.
a good old-fashioned Canadian tax revolt.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right on, guys.
Right on.
Keep it up. And let's bring it home.
Yeah, that's
Thank
great.
you.
Hey, thank you, buddy.
Thank you. Thank you.
And this was over at the Nova Scotia-New Brunswick border, and I, for one, could not be happier to see Pierre not only going out. You saw this during the truckers' convoy, and again, a lot of people say that he turned tail on that. I remember infamously seeing Pierre Poilievre on the overpasses with his wife. They were handing out coffee and food to those who were coming in the trucks during the Freedom Convoy, interviewing those that weren't quite to Ottawa yet, and getting their perspectives on what was going on. And again, he was in very high support of that. If you remember the clip of him walking into the House of Commons when he was asked about the trucks when they did arrive to Ottawa, he of course stated that he did agree with anybody who was protesting legally and obeying the rules of protest. And again, while some politicians have to pull away because of what it gets them into, again, as he said with standing in front of the F Trudeau flag, we all know that Pierre agrees with it. We all know that Pierre stands behind it. But when it comes to his job, it's guilt by association. And unfortunately, if he doesn't want to be smeared everywhere, you have to have a boundary. And I understand those boundaries. So I'm not going to poo-poo him for that, or for him distancing a little bit when things got hectic with the Emergencies Act. We've heard in his speeches and his wife's speeches since then that of course they stand with those who came out in the Freedom Convoy, who protested legally. And that's what Pierre has always been about. He supports the angst and the desperation of Canadians that are deeming for change. He wants to see change the same as Canadians. Again, I question how much of that change can we get and at how fast, but I still say that this is the best man for the job. He's the only one next to people like Maxime Bernier that I see going out and talking to candidates, or not to candidates, but to voters, being interested in what they have to say, siding with them, standing at these rallies, even to show up at this rally, at this protest. For Pierre to think that he's not going to catch any kind of guff for this, or any kind of nod from the Liberals for, hey, look who he associates with. It's already happened. I noticed there's a Diagolon flag on the door of one of those campers. People were already circling that and pointing it out online that wanted to raise hell and say, look who he's associating with again. And it's just, it's people drawing for whatever they can to try and smear this man. But I got sour news for anybody who wants to sour Pierre Poilievre's run for Prime Minister. It's not going to happen. Pierre for PM, he's going to take it all the way, and he's going to bring it home. I'm anxious to see what he does, and let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. If you're happy to see him supporting this protest, standing out with these folks, taking photos, taking the time to hear what they have to say, and focus on what really matters moving forward in our next election. Leave me your comments down below, and again, if it's your first time here to the channel, I hope that this video has earned your subscription. Don't forget to turn on your bell for notifications, and join us live here every Friday on the channel at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central for Friday Night Fringe, where we go over things like this and have a little bit of back and forth with the community, and I get to hear what you guys have to say outside of making these videos. I look forward to those streams. It's my favorite part of the week, and I look forward to seeing each and every one of you there. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and enjoyed this video. I'll catch you on the next one.